how was Thakur the automobile avatar? Well, Thakur always had a fascination with anything mechanical, and though the first car we bought for him he didn't want, but suddenly near the end of his, towards the end of his sojourn on this earth, he began asking various people to bring him a car. Now, this is not extraordinary if you have a lot of people and you need to move around, but in this particular case, Thakur already had almost 22 cars in the garage, which were managed by his eldest son. The fees for their registration, the expenses for their repairs, and the mechanical work that had to be done, and the drivers, was up in the thousands of rupees. They were used a lot by various people at various times, but he kept asking for more and more. And people would come, and as they were leaving, he'd suddenly say to them, "Hey, can you bring me a nice big car?" And they'd say, "What kind?" And he'd say, "Consult with Bortha," who was his eldest son, who was the administrative head and had to solve all the problems, the practical problems. And they would go to Bortha, and Bortha would say, no, you didn't understand, don't bother." Now, this was going on for days on end. And it was quite apparent to Bortha that there were more than enough cars, that we didn't use them all. He didn't even have enough drivers for all of them, and hundreds of thousands of rupees going for their upkeep. More cars was not a priority on his list. But for Thakur, every Utsav and any time visitors would come, that became a priority. He would ask them to go, and Bortha would immediately derail them. Well, he got me involved too. He began asking me for cars. I'd say, "All right, I'll try." And of course, I didn't try. I'd go to meetings. We'd do so many other things. There was other things to raise money for, more constructive projects. And he kept insisting on getting cars. And I finally, Bortha would of course tell these people, "You didn't understand. Thakur really didn't want any cars. You misunderstood." Well, when he kept asking me, and I avoided, he suddenly one day, and when there weren't too many people around, looked at me and said, "Hey, don't you understand? Can't you understand? Everything depends on these cars." And he said it with such an intensity, and he looked sort of, his eyes were boring into me. I felt, well, I have to do something. So between the conferences of 3 months when you go out in the field to work, I would go out, be invited to various meetings, and I thought, well, I've got to talk about Thakur, but then I have to bring up this cause of getting money for Thakurs. But it was embarrassing to bring up. There were other causes of his university, of breaking the river flow backward to open up this land that hadn't been used, a hospital or students, parents could live with their patients. There were some fantastic projects. Cars just didn't seem a thing to demand from people who already didn't have much money, and they were under tremendous pressure. But this insistence that, "Don't you understand? Can't you understand? Everything depends on these cars." So I hesitantly, after one meeting, said to someone, "Thakur wants these cars," and I wasn't very convincing about it. They gave me 10 or 20 rupees. And figuring the cheapest cars were in the 8 or 9, 10,000 rupee bunch, I thought, how long this will take. And I was feeling I couldn't go back to Dogar because Thakur insisted on the cars, and I couldn't really ask people for money. Until finally there was a big meeting in the military, what do they call it? The rifle factory, Barrackpur Rifle Factory, where the head of it, a man named Banerjee, was holding a big meeting in his house. It was a very big home and a big yard, and there was a large number of people, and he was constantly, it was a prestige show. And I thought beforehand, I said to myself, I have to ask these people this time, no matter how embarrassing it'll be. So I opened up my talk by telling, and as graphically as I could, the description of the incident where Mary of Magdalene brings this expensive oil for Christ, and the disciples protest, Judas and the others, that why are you allowing her to put this oil on your feet? The perfume could be sold and the money could help the poor. And Christ replied, "The poor will always be with you, but I'll not. What this woman has done will be remembered forever." And I told that story to preface my point about the cars, and I told it as graphically and as emotionally as I possibly could. And then I said, now this issue that Thakur wants some cars. Well, now the owner of the house and this prominent official of the rifle factory from the back said, what does he want the cars for? What is his reason? And you know, at that moment, something happened in my brain. Whether it was my ego was wounded or that Thakur could be challenged as if he didn't have a reason, and things opened up. And I said, I'll tell you the reason. The simplest reason is that there is absolutely no reason for these cars. The fact of the matter is, Thakur has over 60 some cars in Dilgar. He has more cars there than he has drivers who can drive them. Borda is plagued by the amounts of money that have to be spent on registration, repairs, and so forth, exorbitant amounts. And they don't need the cars. So actually, there is absolutely no reason for the cars. And there are other projects that have much more reason for them. The university where students can come and live in this professor's home, the flood control, it'll change this whole area, make the river flow backwards, open up a lot of land that isn't used. The hospital where parents can live, or the guardians can live with their patients. He has some miraculous projects. Why would you want cars when there are so many cars you can't use them? So to be honest with you, there is no reason. And the only possible reason I can tell you is that Thakur wants them. That's the only reason. And the only reason I can ask anyone to give is because if they love Thakur. Let me just ask you one question. I saw his wife in the back. I said, Ma, how many saris do you have in your trunk? And she smiled shyly, put the sari in her mouth. And I said, you have at least 30, 40, 50. You have at least that many. But tell me one thing. If Dada here, your husband, goes to the bazaar with you one day and you say, oh, what a beautiful sari, I'd like that. Will he buy it for you? You know he'll buy it for you. Even though he knows you have so many saris, there's no reason why you need another sari, absolutely no reason. But the main reason is he'll buy it because he loves you. And so this appeal now, my brain opened up, it's clear. The appeal to people now for these cars are people who will love Thakur the way you love your wife. If those people who love Thakur that way have no reason, they just love him and he wants it, they're the people I'm appealing to who want to give money. They're the people I appeal to humbly. He's been asking for so long, I've been ignoring it, but that's the fact. If you love him and you feel that way about him, that he wants it, so you're giving him, there's no good reason for it, then you can give, I'll take. And that was the spark that opened up the whole program. And it opened up a world, a vision, and an experience that I don't think I had before or since. And it went on for as long as that car program lasted. And what it was that people suddenly began to feel, yes, you don't need a reason. When you love someone, you give them because you love them. And people began to give them money. And I began to get a car. And the moment I'd get to Dilgar with Thakur, would say, all right, he wouldn't even compliment me on it. He'd say, I need 2 more. And when are you leaving? I had just gotten there. I'd say, well, I just got here. Are you leaving tonight? And I would be goaded to go out again. And out we'd go around to people again asking, only appealing to this huge family of satsang that was quarreling, was nervous, Thakur was getting old, what's going to happen in the future, factionalism going on. To each one of those meetings, I'd forget all the other things, just say, I'm appealing to those who love Thakur, who want to give him out of love will give, and people would give. And when that opened up, the moment the car would get back, within a day I was out again for another car. It went back and forth, car after car, and in the process, miracles that was like the days of Jesus, miracles beyond imagination. I would go in a home, big home, 3 stories, 1 story unfinished. I'd go in early in the morning with a bunch of people, and I'd say, listen, I'd say to the man there, I'd say, Keppel, I need 500 rupees from you. Oh, I don't know, I can't, how can I give? He said, you know, the 3 children have been ill for months, and we haven't finished the top floor. I said, just get the 500 rupees. I don't want to hear the reason.